a lot of people, when they see someone who has achieved a massive goal, especially with social media, all they're seeing is what they were then and then them accomplishing this huge goal. They don't see those building block pieces in between. And that's the most important thing to remember, that it takes time. A small achievement each day will lead up to something gigantic.
Social media is really, really hard. Whatever field you're in, if you want to dance in the Super Bowl, if you are starting a podcast, if you just are aiming towards having a certain fitness level or financial security, it's so easy to look on social media and immediately your confidence gets crushed because there's always going to be people who are doing more than you, who have more than you, who are further along the path than you. You don't see all the work behind the scenes. What you're seeing is literally just on the surface. And we need to remind ourselves when we compare to those people, they put in all the blocks. They did all the steps from A to Z, but you are seeing just the end. And they probably had all of those feelings of doubt and insecurity that we have as well through the journey, but that's not what we see. Are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the external pressures and expectations that the new year brings? Maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck in your current situation or feeling anxiety about falling behind. The good news is you are not alone. So many others, myself included, are feeling the exact same way. The further good news is therapy can help. A therapist can help you distinguish external pressures from your own internal values. Develop a timeline that feels authentic to you rather than one imposed by society. Process any feelings of inadequacy or comparison and whatever else you might be feeling or experiencing. Whatever challenges this new year might bring up for you, BetterHelp, who is sponsoring today's episode, can help make it easier. BetterHelp is a therapy platform that is entirely online, making it both comfortable and convenient. Simply fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And don't worry, you can easily switch therapists at any time if it's not the right fit. Start fresh at any day of the year with BetterHelp by clicking the link in the show notes or go to betterhelp.com/unfulfilled to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Camille. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's guest episode where I am joined by the lovely Emmy Levy. Emmy is the founder of the Emmy Effect, where she does wonderful work around building confidence. So today, as you may have guessed, we're going to talk all about confidence, how to feel more confident, why you might not be feeling very confident. So Emmy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. I can't wait.
I can't wait as well. You are such a ray of sunshine. So let's dive in. What are the most effective ways to feel more confident?
Oh my gosh, what a question. Honestly, the most effective ways to feel more confident is truly, first of all, how you talk to yourself. I find when you talk to yourself like you are your best friend, it completely changes your mindset. Your thoughts are what shape who you are. Another little piece I would say is the way that your body language is. I like to kind of use the example of think about two people when they walk into a room. The first person walks in, their shoulders are slouched. They kind of had their head down. They're not making eye contact with anyone in the room. The second person walks in, their shoulders are back. They're standing like they have a crown on the top of their head. They're making eye contact with everyone, even if they don't know anyone in this room. That is an effective way to feel more confident without even speaking. And, just being true to who you.
I love that. It's almost like you don't have to necessarily feel very confident, but if you come across that way, you almost feel more confident if you just act more confident. Honestly, when I'm feeling a bit less confident, it's so helpful for me to just ask, what would my most confident self do in this moment? And then do that. Even if it might not feel very natural, the whole point of confidence is you appear confident to other people. And when you appear confident to other people, it boosts your confidence. So they almost go hand in hand. Like you don't have to feel it to necessarily embody that confidence.
Exactly. 100%.
So you do a lot of work with kids, especially surrounding confidence and instilling this sense of confidence with the younger generation. What have you found have been the biggest roadblocks or barriers from people feeling more confident?
So worrying about what people are thinking about you, people aren't really thinking about you as much as they're thinking about themselves. When you are worrying about what other people think, you're holding yourself back from feeling your most confident and comparing yourself to others. I mean, Social media is a prime example of this, where I find it's a double edged sword because that's how the two of us got connected. You can connect with people all over the world, and it's fantastic. But on the other end, you're seeing all these people, these influencers, celebrities, you're getting pictures and videos of negative information and negative things that you're now comparing yourself to.
There's a lot to be said about that. Whenever we're focused on how we're being perceived by other people, we're less focused on are we being authentic and
Yep.
are we showing up as our best selves because we're so worried and focused about how that person's perceiving us. Whereas
Exactly.
if we come back to, okay, am I being authentic? Am I showing up as a version that I'm proud of? We can tune back into what is within our control, which is how we want to show up,
Mm-hmm.
not so focused on how other people are going to perceive us. And another thought I had is no matter what, there is going to be people that don't like certain aspects about us. And the more that we focus on what isn't clicking with other people, the less confident we're going to feel in ourselves because we're going to be scrutinizing the things that might not be accepted by everyone around us, which is just going to kill our confidence.
100%. 100%. Yep. That is such a good point.
So there's going to be days, of course, when we feel less confident. I definitely have those days. I'm sure you have those days. How do you personally handle those days when you might not be feeling like your most confident self? And what advice do you have for others when they have those moments?
Definitely. Yes, we have days where we feel great. The sun is shining. We are ready to take on the day full force as our authentic self. But there are 100% days where we are not feeling our best. And I got a couple different tools that I like to use. Affirmations are truly your best friend on days that feel like this. It feels so silly, but when you put your hands on your hips, you don't have to, but that adding your hands on your hips is definitely a key to making yourself feel a little bit better. And you look in the mirror and you speak to yourself like you're your best friend. I am confident. I am beautiful. I am strong. Saying these affirmations, what you say is what you start to believe, and it's what you start to embody. Truly, on the days that I feel less confident, I don't fight it at first. I like to kind of feel through my emotions and kind of, sit with it for a second, acknowledge, okay, today might not be the day I feel my most confident, but it's temporary. This feeling will pass at some point. But to kind of get myself out of that funk, I take small actions. Something that I know will shift my mindset. Maybe it's eating something that I don't usually eat all the time because why not? Like a little special little treat. Or maybe I wear an outfit that makes me feel good. I journal because I love to write stuff down. I blast music, whatever it is. And I realize that practicing those little small actions can kind of help you feel more confident.
So, a couple things. Affirmations, 100% huge fan of those. And I agree. I think what maybe intimidates or holds people back from embracing affirmations is it feels uncomfortable. It feels weird and unnatural. And it's easy to think that they don't work. But I think the beauty of affirmations is the more you lean into them and practice them every day, the more you're going to believe those thoughts. So it's easy to try affirmations for a day or a week and say, oh, it's not working. I'm going to stop that. The more that we train our minds to actually start to believe those thoughts, and the more we train ourselves to talk to ourselves in that positive way, as you were describing, and being our own best friend, the
Mm-hmm.
more natural it's going to feel. And also the more we're going to actually believe that. So I
Right.
think the key with affirmations is repetition and consistency, like anything. Otherwise, they're not really going to stick. And over time, it starts to feel less unnatural because those thoughts don't seem so crazy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as you do feel more confident, you're like, wow, I do actually love myself. Whereas when you're starting out, it might be like, this all is so untrue. Like, I don't want to say
Yep.
it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have, as much as I'm glass half full, I know a ton of people who are glass half empty. And they're like, what do you mean you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I am confident? I say to them, try it.
Yeah.
Literally sit in front of your mirror. Maybe don't sit in front of your mirror, whatever it is, try it and say to yourself, I am confident. Truly talk to yourself like you are your best friend, because it will completely, like you said, it will shift your mindset.
I think a lot of us aren't aware of the impact of the thoughts we give weight to.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this all the time to my yoga students in class. Like, whenever a thought comes, you don't have to give weight to it. Simply like let it pass and return. Like, when the negative thoughts come that maybe are highlighting your insecurities, that are negative thought patterns you get stuck down, you don't have to give energy and space to them. And the beauty is when you get better at acknowledging when the negative thoughts come up and being aware of it is a better way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
that awareness then can trigger you to be like, oh, I'm going to come back to that positive way of talking to myself. And if those positive affirmations are a lot more accessible and feel more natural and attainable in your headspace, it's going to be easier to shift to those. Whereas if you're used to and trained to talking to yourself in that negative way, you're probably not going to be aware of those negative thoughts because it's going to feel so natural and it's all you're really going to know. It's the only way you know how to talk to yourself. Another thing that you brought up, which I love and I 100% agree with, taking action.
Mm-hmm.
I so believe that action is honestly the best way to build confidence. As powerful as affirmations are, I do think that when we actually move and take action and do things where we're providing evidence to ourselves that we are confident and capable and worthy, that is where that deeper sense of confidence lies rather than just the surface level, like telling yourself you're confident. If you take action and show yourself that you can be the best version of yourself and be confident regardless of what you might be feeling, it's like deeply instilling it within you because you're proving it to yourself through taking action.
Yeah, a little story if I could share.
Please do.
When I first moved to New York City, I mean, I grew up on Long Island, so I always came into the city here and there, but living here is a different beast. I mean, it feels gigantic. And
Yeah.
when I first moved here, I wanted to take it in for all it was and found this website where you could get tickets for different talk shows and different events. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to go by myself. I was so nervous. But when you are feeling nervous or uncomfortable, that's where you're growing. The quote, your comfort zone will kill you, applies exactly to this. And I thought to myself, I can do this. I want to do it, but I'm going to take action on it. And that is kind of where, like you said, that confidence was being deeper instilled within me because I was going to do something that was nerve wracking, but at the end had a wonderful outcome because I got to experience something new.
100%. So
Mhm.
there's coupling that self-talk and like hyping yourself up of I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, like this is great, blah, blah. But then you have to couple that with like, okay, now I actually have to do it, you
Right.
know? And the actual doing part's the hard part. Like you can sit here and like again, shout affirmations at yourself all day, but the point is you want those affirmations and you want that positive self-talk to lead to positive action. You
Hmm.
know, because what's the point if you're just saying these things to yourself and not coupling it with the actual doing?
Right.
And it's interesting thinking back to the root of lack of confidence. We're scared of what other people think of us, or we come back to fear, right? I think fear is really at the core of a lot of our lack of confidence because we're scared of rejection. We're scared to be our authentic selves. But when you take action regardless and push through that discomfort of not feeling 100% confident, when you get to the other side of it, so like you go to the talk show and then you leave and you're like, wow, I just proved all of my fears wrong. It was just a really great experience. What was I so worried about? And because you push through those fears, I think that naturally just boosts and builds your confidence because you proved to yourself that no, actually, that wasn't a legitimate fear. And it encourages you to maybe be more confident in other aspects of your life and take more risks and push through that discomfort.
Yeah, it's like building blocks. Once
Mm.
you do one thing, okay, now I feel confident enough to do the next thing and the next thing, and it just again keeps growing.
100%. I love too how you highlighted the fact that it's important to step outside of your comfort zone. It's
Hmm.
something that I really like to speak to a lot, especially around this topic of building confidence. Confidence really only does come from stepping outside of your comfort zone. That's how you learn to build resilience and learn how to express your most confident self. If you stayed in your comfort zone, you wouldn't really have to be confident because you can just go through the motions and not really have to work that muscle. So, you shared earlier how you're a very glass half full person, and I agree. It radiates off of you. I like to think I'm that way too. We hear this idea about toxic positivity lately. Do you think there's a such thing as being too positive? And how do you find that balance of radiating positivity and confidence while also maybe creating space for the difficult feelings and emotions that come up?
This is a really good question. Like sometimes I do feel too positive. Well, yeah, toxic positivity and being too positive, they kind of are synonymous, but the too positiveness, I use that as ambitious and persistent and going towards the things I want. Whereas the toxic positivity feels like we're forcing ourselves to always be happy and ignore those real emotions. I am as sensitive as it comes. I will cry at the snap of a second. And I like to feel my emotions. It feels very cathartic for me to cry, where the toxic positivity is kind of just like, all right, be happy. This is what's going on. Always have a smile on your face. Yes, I always have a smile on my face, but the things that are making me happy and the things that I'm choosing to focus on in my life. And the two positiveness kind of goes hand in hand with confidence because it isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about knowing yourself and knowing that you can handle both the highs, the highest highs, and the lowest lows. And that balance kind of comes from acknowledging your emotions without judgment. Hmm?
I almost think the distinction is toxic positivity. You don't allow space for the negative emotions and you don't allow space for anything but positive and but happy.
Yeah.
But I think embodying that positive, half glass full nature
Hmm.
is you're acknowledging and recognizing the difficult emotions and maybe the circumstances that are uncomfortable to navigate, but you're choosing to see that situation with the glass half full. You
Yeah.
know, so it's like you're not naive to it. You're not shoving it down and not acknowledging it, but
Hmm.
you're choosing to continue to move forward with a positive lens through that.
Exactly. And there are times when things feel tricky, they get tough, but if you really think about it, okay, yes, this is tough, but I can get through it. I can get through it now and I can get through it again. And choosing to focus on looking at it through a positive lens without forcing that positive lens to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like how you use the word forcing because toxic positivity does have that connotation where it feels forced. Like
Hmm.
you really might not be feeling positive today, but you're going to force yourself to be happy and positive anyways. Whereas, okay, let's sit with this difficult feeling, like accept that we're not going to be our most confident and happiest self today.
Hmm.
But maybe the positive twist on it that we put is not, I'm going to force this smile on my face and just like be bubbly and happy anyways. But we can say, but I know this is temporary and I know this is for a reason. And
Yep.
putting that like gentle, subtle positivity on it where we're allowing ourselves to sit with it and we're not being naive to it or avoiding it,
Hmm.
but reminding ourselves this isn't permanent. This isn't who I am. And I know that there's light on the other side of whatever it is I am feeling in this moment.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that. So, another topic I want to chat about with you, manifestation. I think it goes a little bit hand in hand with confidence because in order to manifest, we have to be confident in ourselves and what we
Mhm.
want and believe it wholeheartedly. So, let's talk about this idea of manifestation. First of all, what does manifestation mean?
So for everyone, it has a different definition. But to me, I think manifesting is the process of really bringing your desires, your dreams, your goals into a reality through your thoughts, your beliefs, and most importantly, your actions. And in my workshops, in my Emmy Effect workshops, tell the children and young adults I'm working with, you can think of a dream, you can think of a goal, you can think of an aspiration you have, but if you don't take action on them, that's where the manifesting lies. You get clear about what you want, you're as specific as you can be, and your brain truly will respond better to the clarity of what you're thinking about. A lot of people think manifesting is very woo woo, and it's like, what on earth are people talking about when they say they want to manifest their goals? But it's real. When you're aligning your energy to a wavelength where you feel like you already have something in your life, it completely changes how you kind of view your everyday life and work towards those goals or dreams.
I think where I find the most difficulty with manifestation, and
Hmm.
not difficulty in the sense that I don't believe it, I'm 100% a believer in manifestation and I try to practice it myself.
Hmm.
Where I find that I struggle with it is embodying that person who already has it. And I feel like that's where a lot of people struggle as well, because how can I embody that person who has something that I don't actually have? You know,
Right.
it's way easier said than done. And
Mhm.
it's difficult to get to that place.
100%.
So what is your advice for overcoming that barrier of like, okay, how do we actually manifest and try to embody that person who already has it in order to attract it?
So I completely agree because it is tough to be like, wait a second. I mean, at least with me in my life, I danced in the Super Bowl halftime show in 2024, which
Yeah, you did.
feels which feels crazy to say out loud, but I was able to visualize me actually being there. But the way that I kind of built myself up to that goal was thinking about small goals. I would suggest thinking about those smaller goals that you have And the more you try to build towards those goals, even if they don't come true, the more you're really aligning your mindset with taking intentional action towards them.
No, honestly, I love where you were going there, and I'll just jump right in. So
Okay.
it's exactly what you said earlier. It's taking the building blocks and stacking them on top of another. And I think that's honestly a really beautiful reframe and wonderful answer to my question, because you're so right. It's in trying to manifest this massive thing and going from A to Z. That might be where a lot of people get lost, right?
Mhm.
Because how do I go from A to Z? Like, I'm so far from that huge goal. Like, where do I even start? And that is such a beautiful point. Like, just start taking action and putting one step in front of another. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like for you, it was dancing in the Super Bowl. For me, it's having a successful podcast. Like, when I first started over a year ago, I was like, that seems pretty far off. I don't even own a microphone or know how to upload anything onto Spotify. And so that was my first step. Like, that was my first step forward and my first building block. But obviously, I'm not just going to get clear on my visualization of having a successful podcast and not take action to buy the mic and do all the research and put in the work. And so
Mhm.
I think the key is putting in the work, but knowing that the work is one step at a time, and it eventually compounds until all of a sudden you're at that place that you visualize. But I
Mhm.
think maybe too, it's important to acknowledge like it takes time and it does take work and action and maintaining confidence throughout that action and positive self talk. And we're tying all of it together.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they see someone who has achieved a massive goal, especially with social media, all they're seeing is what they were then and then them accomplishing this huge goal. They don't see those building block pieces in between. And that's the most important thing to remember, that
Mm-hmm.
it takes time.
A
Like you said,
hundred
one
percent.
step in front of the other. A small achievement each day will lead up to something gigantic.
100%. And I just got chills because social media is really, really hard.
Hmm.
Whatever field you're in, if you want to dance in the Super Bowl, if you are starting a podcast, if you just like are aiming towards having a certain fitness level or financial security of some sort, it's so easy to look on social media and immediately your confidence gets crushed because there's always going to be people who are doing more than you, who have more than you, who are
Yep.
further along the path than you. You nailed it when you said you don't see all the work behind the scenes.
Hmm.
What you're seeing is literally just on the surface. And we need to remind ourselves when we compare to those people, they put in all the blocks, they did all the steps from A to Z, but they are at the end. So that is why you are seeing just the end, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah.
And they probably had all of those feelings of doubt and insecurity that we have as well through the journey, but
Mhm.
that's not what we see. And
Right.
so I'm really glad you brought up this idea of social media, because social media, I think, is a huge barrier to a lot of us feeling confident because it's so easy to compare, right? We look at everyone on social media and we say, well, why am I not there yet? Maybe I'm not worthy because I'm not where that person is or doing what they're doing. How can we continue to feel confident while seeing everyone else's lives on social media and avoiding comparing to feel less confident?
It's a tricky one. Social media, it definitely deters our confidence here and there. We're all guilty of it. Seeing when other people are achieving these goals, we can choose to look at it as, okay, I'm not at that point yet and I want to be there, in a negative headspace, or we can choose to look at it in a positive headspace. I want to be there. What actions can I take to get there, to be at that point? I like to remind myself a lot that my timeline is mine, your timeline is yours. There is no point where we're supposed to be, okay, we're supposed to be at this point, at this time, at this year of my life. Growth happens organically for everyone, happens differently for everyone. So, while yes, it is tricky when you see someone who is around the same age as you and they're maybe doing the same thing as you, and you're like, well, I want that. If you want it that badly, you are willing to take action on it and you are not afraid to try, to fall, to get back up again, to fall down again, and to keep going. And that fear of failure doesn't hold you back if that's truly what you want.
I agree. And also practicing that abundance mindset rather than that scarcity mindset, to remind ourselves that their success doesn't take away from my own. That's a huge mindset shift that I am constantly practicing when I see someone else maybe attaining something that I want. Whether it be like, wow, they have such a great relationship, or wow, their podcast is huge. And it's easy to look at that and be like,
Mhm.
now there's less for me. That is literally just a limiting belief that's holding us back and making us feel less secure and less confident because we're telling ourselves that they're taking away something that we can't have.
Right.
Whereas, like you said, maybe we instead see it with a positive lens like, wow, look at what they have and what they're doing. That's so cool that that's possible. I want that, and I'm going to learn from that. One topic that I spoke to in a previous conversation I had on the podcast is this idea of, instead of comparing from a negative light, what do we admire about that person's path and their life, and how can we emulate it?
I
How
like
can we emulate? It just came to me.
that.
Like, what are they doing that we can learn from? In this podcast journey, I've reached out to so many people, whether it be just learning how to do social media or in the
Yeah.
podcast space, like, hey, tell me what worked, tell me how you've grown, let me learn from you. I just want to say I admire what you're doing,
Mhm.
and learning and following in their footsteps rather than comparing and letting that kill our confidence to tell ourselves, like, oh, I'll never get there. That's so far off.
Exactly.
Ask them what the building blocks that they stacked looked like and then emulate it.
Yeah. I also find that social media, people like to change the narrative of what's actually happening. Again, we never know what's going on behind the scenes, and they
Mm,
could be presenting themselves with their best foot forward. Their journey might not look as glamorous as it's being presented on social media. When you put that in your mind, in a very weird, twisted way, it almost gives you a little bit of confidence knowing, okay, not everything you see on social media is real. A lot of it is very misconstrued. And when you focus on yourself and you don't compare yourself to others, it allows you to step into your own power.
I totally agree. And I think that's really cool that it's becoming a trend now in social media where you reveal the behind the scenes and
I love it.
yeah, you show up authentically. This great girl who I went to high school with now has this big wellness Pilates page on Instagram. And she is big into that trend of like making videos with all the deleted clips
Mhm.
because she herself struggles with comparing to the people that seem perfect on social media. And it's a way to share with her community the message that I'm not perfect. I'm not going to pretend to be perfect. And I think we all need to embrace that. And I think that's where true confidence comes, is not trying to come across as a certain thing, but being authentic and continuing to be accepted for that authenticity.
100%.
So yeah, social media is a beast, but there's pros and cons, and I think that one tool for any listeners to take away is, okay, when you find yourself comparing to someone on social media that looks like they're so far ahead of you or has something that you want, what can you learn from them? How can you admire that path? And instead of thinking that they are taking away something from you that you wish you had, remind yourself that they're just proving that the journey is possible. Learn
Yeah.
from them how to get there, and then manifest that by stacking one block at a time.
I love it. I love it. I really hope that whoever is listening to this podcast truly takes that advice, because it's real. You're doing it with your podcast. I'm doing it with my Emmy effect. It's a real thing. Manifesting and confidence go hand in hand together. So whoever is listening, I hope that they take all of these tools.
Couldn't agree more. So let's round it out back to confidence, because this is where the heart and soul of your work is and the topic
Mhm.
of this episode. So you do a lot of work with children. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, in your work with children, have they taught you something that we can all incorporate a little bit more into our lives as adults?
Absolutely. So, just a little bit about myself before I answer that question. I
Yeah.
went to school to become a teacher. I went to study education, got my degree in education, New York State certified. Alongside that, I was a camp counselor for years and years and years. So, I've worked with kids throughout my life, especially now with the Emmy effect, and I've seen all different types of personalities, but each kid has taught me something different. These kids, especially today, they're not afraid to try and they're not afraid to fail. And they will fall down, like I said before, and they'll get back up again. And they don't let that fear of failing hold them back the way that adults would. They kind of have that natural born confidence without even realizing it's confidence, that they don't overthink. They just be. They're
They're
just kids.
fearless.
Yep, 100%. And they express themselves freely and they don't hold their emotions back. And it's truly a beautiful thing to see, because as an adult, we can get caught up in our day to day and truly focus on the negative. But something I like to remind myself is it a bad day or is it a bad 5 minutes? And when you kind of flip your mindset into realizing, okay, it really was a bad 5 minutes, maybe it was a bad 6 or 7 minutes, whatever it was, watching these kids in my events, they they kind of take that it was a bad 5 minutes mindset instead of a whole bad day mindset
Mhm.
where they feel it and then they let it pass. And they're just embracing their authentic self without fear of judgment ever. So it's really magical that I get to give back to these kids, showing them how to tap further into their confidence, but they get to show me, you can live your life in a very authentic way.
I love that. I just got chills. I think we can learn so much from children.
Hmm.
And I think we unlearn a lot of those wonderful, authentic qualities the older we get because we just internalize all these fears and we internalize all these other external messages that really aren't serving us. And so I think sometimes just spending time around children and asking what we can learn from them and their like pure, fearless,
Hmm.
excited demeanor
Yeah.
about life, it's just so powerful. And that was one question I wanted to be sure to ask you because we forget that in adulthood we're like, oh, gotta pay our taxes on time, get to work on time, and we're stressed that we're late and like blah blah blah, and we're just like drinking to numb the pain of just not liking our day to day and like all these things that I think we do just forget about the pure bliss of life sometimes, and again, not in like a toxic positive way, but just in a how can we channel that children fearlessness and that confidence that they radiate because they haven't unlearned those pure attributes, if that makes sense. And that can allow us to just live more fulfilling lives because we're not as afraid to go for things and to be authentic.
What 100%.
Emmy, you are truly a ray of sunshine, and I'm so, so glad to be connected with you. Thank you for taking the time today. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about the Emmy effect?
Absolutely. So, first of all, this was an honor to be here. I'm glad to be a part of your podcast journey and just watching it flourish into what it is and what it will
Oh, thanks.
become. If people are interested in connecting, I'm on Instagram and TikTok at the Emmy Effect. I love connecting with people. My DMs are always open. That's how me and Camille met. So, if anyone is interested in hearing more about the Emmy Effect, more about myself, that is where I am. My email is also linked in my bio, I think. All right.
Thanks, Emmy. If you like this episode, please leave a rating or review wherever you are listening. Send this to a friend who might enjoy it and press follow or subscribe if you aren't already. I'm so grateful that you all showed up today. Thank you for being a part of this community. I'll see you all again soon on your journeys to becoming more fulfilled.